Hello, and welcome to your content video, where today's topic is plant phylogenetics. Now, if we're going to talk about plant phylogenetics or phylogeny, we have to start off with what are plants. In visual cases, plants are,
They're everywhere.
but scientifically, they are known as eukaryotic organisms that contain a cell wall with cellulose, are mostly multicellular, and are mostly autotrophic, as they get their nutrients and energy from the sun through a process called photosynthesis.
What is photosynthesis?
Photosynthesis is a chemical process that occurs in plants, algae, and some types of bacteria where they are exposed to.
Sunlight.
This process helps them get their nutrients, hence the reason they are autotrophic. Now let's talk about phylogenetics.
What are phylogenetics?
Well, it's the study of evolutionary history and relationships among or within groups of organisms. But before we get into phylogenetic plants, we have to talk about how plants have different variations. These variations are important to know. There are vascular and non-vascular plants. Vascular plants have veins. Early plants didn't have a way to move water or nutrients around, so they did it through osmosis.
What is osmosis?
Osmosis, in simple terms, is the movement of water from high concentration to low concentration. Non-vascular plants did not have veins, and an example of which are bryophytes, which will be mentioned later in this video. There are also seedless and seeded plants. Both have spores that produce through sexual reproduction. Seedless plants have flagellated spores, and seedless plants can't produce flowers. Now we can talk about the types of phylogenetic plants. We start off with green algae and others. The reason we're starting off with them is because they are the most ancestral group of plants evolving from protists around 400 million years ago. An example is algae, which can be found in most bodies of water. Green algae are plants that don't make embryos, while other plants do. They could be both unicellular and multicellular. We then have bryophytes, which are non-vascular and they can't move water or carry their gametes long distances. The gametes from bryophytes can't travel by air because of their structure. They also just don't have veins or a large reach. Examples are moss and liverworts. Next are seedless vascular plants, which are vascular plants but they are still unable to spread their gametes through air. Examples are ferns and horsetail. The second to last are gymnosperms, and they are vascular plants with the ability to spread their seeds in the air, but they are not covered by anything, unlike angiosperms. Examples are ginkgophyta and conifers. And speaking of angiosperms, they are also vascular plants that can spread seeds in the air, but they are covered in tissue, which means they are flowering plants. Examples of angiosperms are everywhere, like roses, orchids, hydrangeas, jasmine, and even corn and tomatoes. But wait, there's more. Angiosperms have subcategories. The subcategories of angiosperms are water lilies, which are an ancestral group of flowers, monocots, which are groups of flowers that begin growing once the seed germinates with only one leaf. They grow in petal sets of 3 and have a fibrous root system. Magnolias are a smaller group of flowering plants that include roughly 200 species. And finally, dicots, which are monocots, but they grow when germination happens with 2 leaves. They grow in petal sets of 4 or 5 and have the ring tissue system. Now we have a phylogenetic tree. A phylogenetic tree is a diagram that depicts the lines of evolutionary descent of a different species, organism, or genes from a common ancestor. We will use node A to show when seed is capable of moving without flagellum, and node B to show when the first common ancestor to have vascular tissue. Our first plant on the tree is angiosperms. Angiosperms are closely related to gymnosperms. Both angiosperms and gymnosperms are closely related to seedless vascular plants. Then, bryophytes are closely related to all 3. And the last one, being the most ancestral, is green algae and others.